full access to RFR only on Patreon. Become a member of the RFR Patreon community to get more Rebel Force Radio. Bonus shows and content are available right now only at patreon.com/Rebel Force Radio.
Penetrated the shield and landed on Endor.
This is where the fun begins.
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away.
This is Rebel Force Radio.
Your source for the Force.
Star Wars news and commentary.
With Jason Swank and Jimmy Mack.
I've seen Star Wars 500 times. Star Wars #1!
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe. I suggest we use it.
Now it's time for Rebel Force Radio.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Now, Dominic Monaghan, he says that only one person knows the title of Episode 9, and that's J.J. Abrams. Mm-hmm. That's it. No one else knows.
Mm-hmm. I don't even think J.J. Abrams knows, if you want the honest-to-God truth, but that's my opinion.
Yep, according to a tweet, Dom Monaghan says only at J.J. Abrams official knows. It's good to have secrets on at Star Wars. So, well, you know what? There's a possibility that there is no title right now, or there is no final title for Episode 9. It wasn't that long ago that Return of the Jedi was called Revenge of the Jedi, and it had a last-minute change. So, look, anything can happen at this stage. We're still, what are we now, 10 months out from the release, a little more than 10 months out from the release of Episode 9. We're going to be talking about a lot of rumors. This is peak rumor season as we are pre-title, we are pre-trailer, we are pre-preview of any kind. So this is really when Katie barred the door, all of it's on the table, and lots of different theories and lots of different rumors that are percolating all across the internet, and you're going to hear about it right here on Rebel Force Radio, this week's show for Friday, February 13th, 2019, and I am delighted, as always, to have with me my good friend and yours from Chicago, Jimmy Mack.
Hey, Jason. Hey, Star Wars fans. Pre. Just don't say prequel. No.
Oh, no, you're not allowed. Not allowed.
No, we're deep in sequel. What if they name it Revenge of the Jedi? What if they go with that?
Ooh, now that would be cool. It would be very much like how Revenge of the Sith evoked that same kind of vibes. You got Return of the Jedi, Revenge of the Sith, Revenge of the Jedi. Yeah, very interesting. Very interesting.
Or maybe because Billy D. Williams is in it, they could call it An Old Hope or The Old Hope.
Wow.
The Old Hope. Oh, well,
I'm just trying to tie it all back together. That's all.
Right. I understand.
What do you say? How about call it the Lucasfilm Menace? No. That would be crazy.
No, you can't do that. You can't do that.
You can't do that.
All right. Well, you know what? We're not alone this week, Jim. We've got another Ohio boy with us. He is a very special friend of us here at Rebel Force Radio. It is my privilege and honor to introduce, first time appearing on the show, our pal, big Star Wars fan, Chris Marinan. Chris, welcome to Rebel Force Radio.
Hey, what's up? Thanks. Thank you very much. What's happening, boys and girls of the internet world? As you know,
he's got a phrase already, like a catchphrase.
So I have that little catchphrase for my own podcast that me and my buddies have been recording. It's not out yet, so don't go looking for it. But yeah, it's I followed your lead, right? Like I had to have a little catchphrase, a little intro. Mm-hmm. But if anyone listening right now has ever met me at a live RFR event, you may know me as Chris from Cleveland. But I just want to let everyone that's listening know right now, listening to my voice, that you can consider me a friend, a Star Wars friend. I'm a passionate, lifelong Star Wars fan, just like all of you. Okay. And, there's just too much weirdness and negativity, I feel, in the Star Wars community nowadays. So I just want to extend my proverbial hand, if you will, to each and every one of, the RFR community, all the members. Oh. And we may all see Star Wars from a certain point of view, if you will, but we all love it, nonetheless. And that love is what we should all focus on, that love of Star Wars, and not what tears it apart, right? So with that, I just want to thank you guys, Jason, Jimmy, the RFR crew. You guys have done a lot for me over the years and the Star Wars community as a whole. So, it's no secret that I've let you guys know that you've been an important piece of my life. You filled that massive void that I never knew existed, which was like I share this deep bond with Star Wars with other people. So when I found Rebel Force Radio, I was locked in, and you guys are such an important vehicle to my personal journey through sobriety. And as I told you guys, it'll be 5 years, March 9th, 2019.
All right. There you go.
So when you go through sobriety, you definitely hit some dark times. And when I've hit those dark days, or I've not had such a good outlook, I absolutely will put on Rebel Force Radio to hear you guys talk Star Wars. You guys are definitely my friends. So when I need that boost of positivity, something that kind of uplifts my spirits, you guys have always delivered for me. So with that, I totally, I recognize the honor that you guys gave me today to kind of sit in the cockpit as a guest. And, I may not have the wit of Kyle Newman or the grit of FJ DeSanto. I might not be as huggable and lovable as Paul Bateman.
True, but you do have great persistence, because isn't it true this is the third time you've broken into Jason Swank's house?
Fourth time.
Yeah, but this is the first time it was on a night we were actually doing a show. So welcome.
He promised that if I let him do the show, he'll untie my family. So
it is a promise. I do tend to keep that. But I just want to do this seat justice as best as possible. And if anyone listening, I know I'm not like a known person in the Star Wars community, but if you want to tweet at me, I'll do my best to engage. I do have a day job, but you can hit me up at Known as Chris. I'm going to kind of paraphrase you, Jimmy. We're here to talk Star Wars. So let's get to it.
Yeah, let's absolutely get to it. We have.
That was really nice, though, all of that, Chris. And, and if we played any part in your journey or just being there for you, that is pretty much all that ever matters to me when it comes to this show. Everything we do all happens inside the headphones, and that's that's a place we want to make, to be somewhere you can go to just wrap yourself up in this audio Star Wars cocoon of conversation. And I'm lucky I have Jason here, because I know what you're talking about. There was a time actually in the past where I was, like you, a listener. And there was just something about hearing Jason moderate conversation back then with guys like Pete Nadel, and talk about Star Wars. It became that place for me. Yeah. And so to find that we've built up this great community after all these years, and to know people like you are out there finding a place to share the same passion for Star Wars. That means a lot to me to hear that, because like I said, I was in your shoes too. And there were some times when I found the podcast to be very important to me, just as a listener. So,
yeah.
Well, good. Chris, I appreciate the fact that you take these road trips. You do have to travel. You've got a great day job, but it does require you to take these long road trips from time to time. Yep. And a lot of times you'll crowdsource from other Rebel Force Radio listeners, like maybe some of their favorite episodes, and then you'll set up a playlist. So I just have to ask, how do we hold up after all these years? Some of these episodes, I would imagine you've come across some where we're speculating on things, and then, of course, now, years later, we know the truth.
Yeah. I'll tell you what. Listen, now that you guys are re-releasing some of the old episodes through the Patreon feed, I got that Darth Plagueis episode the other day. But when I do that crowdsourcing, because I was kind of late in the game, I discovered Rebel Force Radio when Star Wars Rebels was on, so I had to play catch up. And I'll tell you what. Last year, when I was driving to North Carolina, I had 14 hours to kill, whatever it may be. The episodes I found most fascinating were the episodes related to the Disney acquisition, as well as when you guys broke down the Force Awakens trailers and then the movie, like the post review. Those shows are phenomenal. They hold up. They're great. The insight's fantastic. The insights are raw. And literally it put me back in that moment when I was watching that movie and those trailers for the first time. And even though years had passed, I still felt that electricity, through everybody, through everyone involved, from Paul, Kyle, everyone that was chiming in on those conversations. It was fantastic. So I would encourage any listener to go back, find those episodes. They're brilliant.
That was a lot of fun. We banged out a lot of episodes there right after episode 7. We were in Chicago. I was in Chicago with Jimmy, and we were able to record, a podcast or 2, in some cases 2 a day there in the studios there in Chicago, with various guests popping by, and we were getting all of this very fresh, raw reaction. So I myself might go back and listen to some of those, because that was, very special period of time for Star Wars fans. All right, well, let's get into what's on everybody's mind, which is Star Wars Episode 9. Do we all agree that it's going to start with the?
No.
I say no.
You say no. So we're going to get The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, and something that doesn't begin with the.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Is it too? Is it just too predictable?
I think balance of the Force.
I agree.
That's the one I'm leaning towards. I'm happy to hear that it's being floated out there as a rumor, but that to me always seemed to be a really perfect Star Wars title: Balance of the Force.
Agree.
And it's something that gets discussed at the beginning of the prequel trilogy and at the beginning of the sequel trilogy. So it makes a nice bookend, I think. Balance of the Force kind of sums it all up. Isn't that what these characters are in search of throughout the whole film? Is to find peace in the galaxy.
Well,
and peace, from Jedi terms, is defined by the balance of the Force.
It is interesting that it doesn't come up at all in the original trilogy. There is no talk of balance. It's about destruction of the dark side. That's what it's about. I mean, they're so desperate.
Not entirely. Obi-Wan and Yoda teach Luke some strong lessons that isn't, the priority of the lesson is not to find and seek destruction of your enemies. Of course, that's what they were honing him because he was their only hope. Of course, they were honing him to go into this really difficult situation and be on top of his game.
Yeah.
But were they really trying to train him to be destructive? I don't think so. I think Luke learned those lessons 100%. That's why he couldn't kill his own father, because he truly understood the Force.
What if the end game for Obi-Wan and Yoda the whole time was just to use Luke as bait to bring the Emperor out so he can show his hand, and perhaps that would be what would destroy the Emperor at the hands of Darth Vader? What if it really wasn't at all about Luke killing or destroying Darth Vader? It was all about just drawing the Emperor out, because he wouldn't be able to resist a full and healthy, robust, young Skywalker that's not have all that Padme baggage and all the physical damage. I mean, possible. Right?
Yeah, it's possible.
There are some strong rumors being floated out there about Episode 9 this week, and we're going to talk about them later in the show. So there's your spoiler alert. That's coming up later, and we will give you the official spoiler alert.
We will. When
it happens. But there's been some strong rumors out there that indicate that the antagonist might not be who we always thought he or she or it was.
You know, I had a thought. Do you guys remember? I remember covering it on the show. Pre-episode 7, there was a rumor that we were going to meet a masked character that was going to cause all this destruction in the film, was going to actually kill Han Solo, and then would be revealed at the end of the film to be none other than Luke Skywalker. Do you remember that rumor?
I do not remember that.
And Jim, we talked about it. We was like, oh no, Luke can't kill Han. What are they doing?
Oh, I do remember that. It was back in when those early concept art paintings were being leaked. This was before The Force Awakens came out, and you saw a figure that looked like Luke holding Vader's helmet in sort of that Hamlet way, you know, with the skull.
Right. I do remember that.
And that's when people, I remember when those pictures started showing up, they're like, yeah, Luke's insane. He's going to kill Han Solo.
Yeah.
There's going to be a showdown. Rey is going to witness this.
Yes.
And obviously that information was twisted. It was Kylo killing Han Solo. You have to wonder, though, if they did have Mark Hamill out there for the entirety of the shooting of The Force Awakens. I know this because Mark was spotted in pubs and, you know, shooting Instagram pictures with his son and everything. He was out there for the entirety of the shoot. And they did that to put up a smoke screen so people wouldn't be like, oh, yeah, Hamill was in and out of here. Everyone, you know, would know if Mark all of a sudden was gone. He was gone from Malibu for 3 days and comes back. They're like, oh, you didn't have much work to do. Just stood there, turned around. The girl handed me my old prop. But what do you call it again? You know,
a laser sword,
a light thingy, whatever. But that was like Mark 10 years ago. He's been brought up to speed with Star Wars.
This is Mark Hamill 2.0. But imagine this plot twist. You know, you get introduced to this masked figure that the audience believes is this fallen Jedi that caused Luke to go off into exile. And the whole time you're thinking that this is Ben Solo, Kylo Ren. And at the very end, the mask comes off after the impaling of Han Solo, and it's actually been Luke all along. He hasn't been in exile. He hasn't been missing. He's been creating all kinds of havoc with a mask on, pretending to be this fallen Jedi. It would have been quite a twist.
Yeah,
that would have been. I mean, I think people would have destroyed movie theaters.
Yeah, absolutely. That's brutal. That's so brutal.
It really is.
But you know what I was getting at though is Mark was out there for the entirety of that shoot. What if they staged some shots that, you know, had Mark there and he was involved in some weird stuff like actually killing Han Solo and stuff, and they just shot it for laughs, you know, or whatever. I mean,
that there was some evidence. As rumor.
You know, just because like JJ is infamous for the mystery and keeping up all the walls and everything. What if there was some fake stuff floated out there? Where's all this Carrie Fisher footage coming from?
Where is that footage coming from?
Well, I think that there was a lot of stuff, a lot of last minute changes that went into The Force Awakens prior to its premiere in 2015. I think they were editing in late November and still changing the story around and dropping a lot of stuff. There's a lot of evidence pointing to that. We've heard the Force back was vastly different and more extended and explained stuff.
Yeah.
To the fans, like how Luke's saber ended up in Maz's possession. Things like that, all explained. Who are the Knights of Ren? Who is Rey? A lot of that stuff, I think, was wrapped up into early edits of The Force back. And then the Force back just evolved into this thing that became so abstract that, we're trying to pick it apart and analyze it. So let it pay off. Let us see the full Force back as it was originally intended for episode 7. Let us finally see that in episode 9 if it exists, because it's supposed to, from what I've understood, from what I've been read, I've investigated this thing to death. It's supposed to explain things that fans are going crazy trying to figure out. Maybe even who is Snoke that could be in there. I mean, so many different things could be revealed through an extended Force back. Bring back the Force back. Hashtag bring back the Force back. We want to see the extended Force back.
But they're doing the, what do they call it? The Force time, FaceTime, Force Skype that's going on between Kylo and Rey.
That's all in real time.
Yeah, it is. That's true. That
doesn't tell us anything.
No, that's right. That's just sort of a device.
Bring back the Force back.
Bring back the Force back. Well, here is a note that we got from Mike Krusel. We're not going to bring back the Force back, but The Force Awakens is making its network television debut. And Mike Krusel from St. Paul, he sent us this note, said, "Hey, Jimmy and Jason, I was just watching tonight's episode of The Goldbergs, the Valentine's Day episode. It was so funny. I love The Goldbergs.
Pops.
Yeah.
I love Star Wars, Pops. You love Star Wars.
Yeah.
I love it.
There you go. That's 4 weeks in a row. Goldberg's mentioned. Big Steve Glossen's been keeping track.
And they apparently, I haven't seen this Valentine's Day, they showed a preview for Force Awakens, the world broadcast premiere. We've got a clip. This is the little spot that they have running on ABC for this big TV event.
The world broadcast premiere, Star Wars, The Force Awakens, ABC Sunday.
20 years ago.
No clues there.
Yeah. 20 years ago, that would have been, just earth-shattering. Whenever these movies came out on TV, back before home video was so, I guess we have to go back more like 30 years, before it was so prevalent and so inexpensive for people to have. I mean, that meant everything. Was when
this Sunday, on the Sunday night movie on ABC. The Force Awakens, the world broadcast premiere of The Force Awakens on ABC. Sunday nights.
I'd watch Sunday.
That. Well,
the Sunday movie of the week.
Now, what Mike is
big event, right? Didn't they have the movie of the Sunday movie of the night?
Right.
Who don't want to be away from your television for this?
No, that was
Force Awakens broadcast premiere. Now it's just like, 5 seconds. Yeah, The Force Awakens is going to be on Sunday. Watch it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Or you can bring it up on your iTunes or your, whatever. You throw the Blu-ray in. But the reason that Mike brings this up to us is that he said, hey, could they show a trailer for episode 9 as part of this ABC broadcast premiere? And I know where Mike's going. Mike's saying, hey, it's Star Wars. It's ABC, which is a Disney-owned company. It's prime time. What do you think? I'm going to go back and say, Mike, listen to our episode from last week where we break down every reason why this thing is not going to be shown or any footage of this film be shown before April in celebration, in my opinion. And I think Jimmy also was leaning in that direction as well. I don't see it happening. Chris, do you see this as a possibility? I mean, if they only spent 5 seconds on the Goldbergs promoting Force Awakens on ABC, I would have thought that if this was going to happen, they'd have telegraphed it in the spot for the ABC broadcast.
Absolutely, that was the one opportunity to do that.
I
mean, yeah, I don't see it happening. No.
Yeah, no, I don't think so.
They would have promoted the trailer in the promo.
Right.
So there's been ample opportunity. We're too close to April to throw it out there now.
Yeah, no way.
Just wait till April.
It's not happening before Star Wars Celebration. Let's just face it. Everyone stop clenching your fists.
come to grips, people. Yeah.
Clenching what?
I'd rather wait. I'd rather build that anticipation and wait for Celebration. I mean, I don't need it now. I really don't need it now. But in April, with everyone else, it's going to be really sweet.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm happy just to entertain some of these crazy theories and rumors. I'm if you would have asked me a couple months ago, I probably would have grumbled a little bit, but I'm actually enjoying these quite a bit. I'm looking forward to this segment we've got coming up. Now, this isn't more rumor. This is more conspiracy theory. Jimmy Mack on the Twitter. No, yeah, you. Spreading all kinds of rumors. Jimmy Mack on the Twitter. I'm going to read it. This is Jimmy's tweet. I've been editing content for over 30 years, and I can safely say a news story announcement was edited out in capital letters of today's Star Wars show. Clearly there was news to be broken on this week's show until the order was given to edit it out. Wonder what it could be. Ooh. Jimmy Mack on Twitter. So, Jim, you're saying that you watched Star Wars show and there was a very obvious edit, and you're saying, look, I think there was big news that was going to be broken on the show, but somehow the order was given that it was not happening. Because they obviously are going to record that stuff well in advance.
Yeah, absolutely. And I saw lots of clues. And something after that show was locked and loaded in the can, the order came down from somewhere saying, you can't say that, you can't report on that, that's not a done deal. So instantly people think title announcement, trailer announcement, or even something like a big guest announcement for Star Wars Celebration. Mark Hamill.
Yeah.
But you know what? Listen, guys, I don't want anyone to get their hopes up, but I heard Mark Hamill is not going to be at Star Wars Celebration Chicago. Now, of course, that could change if they back the Brinks truck up into Mark's driveway. But I hear as of right now, it doesn't look like Luke Skywalker is going to be in the house at Star Wars Celebration Chicago. I have that on very good authority.
I think you're dead on. I mean, and even if you didn't have it on good authority, I would be very comfortable speculating that he's not going to be there, because I don't think anyone at Disney or Lucasfilm is looking forward to Mark Hamill standing in front of 20,000 Star Wars fans being asked questions and any kind of a Q&A. Because Mark is a loyal guy. Look, he's loyal to Lucasfilm. He's loyal to Disney. I don't think anybody has walked the line quite as artfully as Mark. But at the same time, he will also give fans their due, and he will also say when he has disagreed with various decisions that were made, et cetera, et cetera. So darn well, if there was a Hamill panel that involved even if it didn't involve a Q&A, Mark interviews himself better than anybody else. There would be something. There would be some soundbite that would come out of that people would run away with. So I think Mark's too much of a loose cannon. I would love it, of course, but you can imagine that this is going to be a very controlled release from a PR perspective. I think Episode 9.
Loose lips sink Star Wars ships, and Mark Hamill's the king of that, for sure.
Well, I don't want to, indict Mark and say he's, the source of all the leaks that ever happened.
No.
He's just a very honest and genuine and authentic person, in my opinion. And he says what he thinks. And he doesn't sugarcoat things, and he speaks from the heart, and he tells it like it is.
I love the candor.
It's always very refreshing.
Yeah.
But on the other side of the coin, too, it can lead to some maybe PR headaches, because at Star Wars Celebration 2017, that was the first time I started to hear Mark saying things like, "Oh, this is going to be a very different Luke Skywalker. I told Ryan, the fans aren't going to like this," and he said, "No, it's the best for the story." And so I said, "Well, he has his role, I have my role, and I will do as I'm told." And that was Mark's approach. He had to get into that mindset because of refusal to collaborate with him about the development of his character that he's lived with for 40 years. Hey, draw your own conclusions about that. It's all publicly documented. A lot of it on The Last Jedi Blu-ray bonus features. So
it's all right there. Yeah,
it's all right there. We talk about this stuff every week on this show. We remember.
When that came out, when he was speaking out, as you were referencing, from my perspective, that it did hurt a little bit, and it did kind of soften the expectations for that movie. Now that I reflect back on it, I remember, listening to Mark talk about his character and the vision, and I was like, really? Like, what am I getting into? What actually is happening? It was a distraction.
Well, I'll be honest. The whole time that when before we saw the film and Mark was talking about, having some disagreements, creative differences with Ryan about the character, I thought it was about turning Luke to the dark side. That's what I really thought it was be about. I didn't think it was going to be, about him, kind of being some bum.
Well, we had
sucking off the tea.
Prior, based on Mark's comments, in press conference situations and one-on-one conversations that were happening at places like Star Wars Celebration 2017, we were hearing these sound bites. Especially there was an ABC interview that he did that always stands out. That was the one where he's like, "It's possible.
It's possible.
It's possible."
But no, it was in April. It was in April that year, and that was the first time Mark was really out promoting The Last Jedi, and he was saying to brace yourself, and it's going to be a wild ride, and it's going to be different and everything, and that he had verbally objected to the direction in which they were going to take the character because he felt like it was going to affect the fan base. And he went along with the story because he's a good soldier. Mark Hamill's a professional.
Right.
But, this isn't just some what's the show? He's doing some show where he looks like he's some kind of medieval knight or something. It's called Knight's Fall. I think that's what's called Knight's Fall. Paul Bateman's been emailing us like 3 times a day about this thing.
Yeah, I've seen the photos. Yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to it too. I'm as excited as Paul is. I share his passion. But this isn't Knight's Fall. They're not, signing Mark on to do 12 episodes of some show. This is Luke Skywalker. Like I said, a character he's lived with for 40 years, a character he developed with George Lucas when it was all open blue sky at that time. And they determined a specific trajectory for his character. Now, of course, Mark is famously known for saying, wouldn't it be great? At the end, I kill Darth Vader, and then I pick up his mask and put it on and say, "I'm the new Darth Vader." Remember Mark would say something?
Oh yeah.
He loved twists like that. He liked the story to go off in some other directions.
It's melodrama.
And I mean, that would have been interesting for episode 7. And then episode 8 could have been about bringing Luke. See, he owns this character. Luke back to the light. And then episode 9, he works with all the new characters and they fight whatever the big threat is to the galaxy. And I'm not thinking the Empire Redux,
Yeah. I think that was some of what we speculated a bit when all those rumors were going. And I remember being very adamant about Luke cannot be bad. It completely undermines. We had Kyle on, he was like, no, it completely takes away from the sacrifice at the end of Return of the Jedi and all of that. We thought that was going to be our biggest challenge. Little did we know. But let's get back to what started this conversation, which is Jimmy's tweet saying that you believe that. Now, what was it? What was it exactly about the way the show was put together or edited together that made you think this was a pretty obvious change?
Okay, well, they do a cold intro, and that was Andy and Sandy. I mean, Andy. That was Andy and Anthony Carboni. And stop. So that was Andy and Anthony, and then they do the intro for the show, and then they came back, and it was only Andy to introduce the news segment. And so I was like, well, that seems odd. Now, I have been following Anthony Carboni on Twitter, and I know that he maintains his residence in Los Angeles while he commutes to San Francisco every week early in the week to shoot episodes of the Star Wars show. As a matter of fact, there was a great article about all the behind the scenes stuff with the Star Wars show that was in Star Wars Insider magazine a few months ago. I mean, it was like day to day. And
great
you know what?
Article.
These guys, they put a lot of production into this show and everything. And I mean, it's really a wild ride sometimes when it's hitting on all cylinders. So we learned that Anthony flies in early in the week, then he flies back home to his life in LA. And so that leads me to believe that why was Andy alone then for the second intro once the show had properly started? You have your cold intro, then you have your pre-recorded intro where they say the Star Wars show and they make the Yoda statue talk, which I've never liked. I think that's a desecration of that work of art, but that's just me. And then they go into the show proper, and usually it's Anthony and Andy standing there, but this time it was Andy by herself, and she even kind of like joked it off like, well, after this transition, Anthony will be back here. And then they go into their news segment. So they go into their news segment, and forgive me for not memorizing what the stories were in succession, but there were only 2 stories in their news segment. When they got to the second story, Anthony said, and finally, da-da-da-da. You never say and finally when it's only the second story.
Right, that's odd. Yeah.
Yeah.
As an editor, that was a red flag to me, because he wouldn't say that for the second story. And there were only 2 stories, which leads me to believe something was removed from the show. Now, I'm not being a conspiracy theorist to such a degree. I'm just pointing out something technically that I observed on the Star Wars show. But we are all like on the edge of our seat in anticipation for some Star Wars Episode 9 news, no matter what it is. Sizzle reel, a glimpse of something, just a title announcement. And like I said, you can't make a title announcement if there's no title to be announced. But maybe just like, they could throw out something like virtual trading cards of like character reveals like they've done in the past. They could use rebelforceradio.com as the outlet for those images.
Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh.
We will extend the bandwidth. I know that does deserve a laugh right there. That does deserve a laugh. But I'm just, I'm thinking about fans who have this insatiable appetite right now, and a lot of fans are feeling a little let down and left in the dark. And I just think maybe some good PR in that department would sort of get people talking about Episode 9 a lot more than they are right now.
True. Well, I think so. I think we've got to get the sooner they get something out, you're right, the sooner that the conversation within fandom is going to be about the future rather than the recent past of.
But something was snipped out of the Star Wars show this week. Trust me on that.
Okay.
And finally, when there's only 2 stories.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah,
that is weird.
Yeah.
All right. And where was he? Yeah. Where was he for the second intro? Where was Anthony?
Back in L.A.
They had to reshoot that. They second did. Intro.
All right, because otherwise, why wouldn't he have been there? Makes no sense.
The X-Files. The truth is out there, Scully. The truth is out there.
Oh.
I didn't have an X-Files theme, so I just threw in investigative reports. I don't know. It called for something.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? One thing that is not a mystery, that is the YouTube channel on Rebel Force Radio over at youtube.com/Rebel Force Radio. And we've got lots of stuff going on there. Jim, you're constantly mining the archives. And not just the archives. I mean, obviously, each episode of Rebel Force Radio gets posted to youtube.com. So if that is your, preferred method to stream and, consume content, we're right there. So just make sure you subscribe.
Right. If YouTube is your jam, check us out. youtube.com/Rebel Force Radio. And this week we released what I like is that I can kind of repurpose some audio, so I can make little, bite-sized, snackable best-ofs for people to listen to. Somebody's like, yeah, I have to go on these runs, and they're like 15-minute runs, and these are perfect to listen to. So this week we put out Disney Star Wars updates with Mr. Iger.
We're going to put an automatronic Palpatine in the Hall of Presidents and wire the seats to give a slight shock. It should be fun.
That is a best of Bob compilation.
Yeah.
So you can hear all of the exclusive, I'm saying everything with air quotes. Okay. Everything I say until I say I'm done is all air quotes. Okay. So, air quotes, Bob Iger, air quotes, revealing exclusive information, air quotes on RFR. End quote. You can find those air quote exclusive updates all over the YouTube channel. Billy D quote of the week is showing up. I found a really funny one when Billy D appeared on Sesame Street back in 1988. Now, we don't have the video, but we do have the audio, and it's really funny because then we edit up all the audio Star Wars style. He's with this Sesame Street denizen named the Honker, and they start counting. Wow. And then also this week, because Bohemian Rhapsody was released on Blu-ray just this week, we launched the two-part compilation of our Star Wars Queen and Freddie Mercury connections that we were coming up with, and that's a lot of fun to listen to. So, I hope a lot of Queen listeners are looking for cool Queen things to check out on YouTube, and then that brings them across Rebel Force Radio, and they'll be like, yeah, I like Star Wars. Oh, these guys are great. I love these guys. And I love Chris. Those episodes Chris are on are the only good ones.
We're getting there.
But then, other like wacky highlights, like the Darth Vader helmet fail from Star Wars Rebels, where his audio receptors weren't exactly up to par. And of course, Mon Mothma, Moon Mother, really, they'll probably reference that bit at my funeral service at some point. So,
yeah, that one never disappoints. That one, God bless her, Carolyn Blackston. What a treat she is. Well, that's great. And also, Jim, you I think you said last week those YouTube bits are also being put out on Patreon. So if you're a Patreon subscriber, you can also get those downloaded right into your feed.
That's the best thing about it, because then the Patreon subscribers, and it doesn't matter what tier you're at, as long as you're a member of the community, you get access to an audio RSS link. You can add this private link that belongs only to you. You can put it into your favorite podcast player. If you need any guidance on how to make that happen, send me an email, show@rebelforceradio.com. We see all of our emails, and I'll help you out. Maybe I'll post some instructions actually on the Patreon page. But lots of stuff happening there. Like Jason said, the YouTube clips are going out in exclusive audio-only formats, ad-free. You don't have to go to YouTube and then click them and open them and hit play and sit through the ads.
Yeah.
And then you have exclusive shows this week. We did RFR Rush Hour number 40, rental cars, Star Wars toys, and The Simpsons. And in this, so we always join Jason on his ride home. We try to hook up with him at least once a month, but this time he's in a rental car. Why? What's up with that? He started driving to work in his own car. Now he's coming home in a rental car. Mystery revealed on RFR Rush Hour. We talk a little Star Wars Resistance. We talk a little bit about RFR Live in Chicago coming this April. And then we talk about a great Star Wars and pop culture moment. Well, I don't know how great, but it happened on The Simpsons this past week. So if you want to hear what that was all about, join our Patreon community, RFR Rush Hour, and we get into it. So and all kind of cool stuff. We're releasing lots of audio out there. And on top of it all, because our Patreon community is so amazing, I was able to, on behalf of everyone in the Patreon community, donate to Cure for Childhood Cancer. We made a nice fat $100 donation on behalf of all of our patrons.
Yeah.
As Big Steve, it's Steve Glosson, the great Steve Glosson, the master of the Golaverse, one of our oldest friends in this podcasting madness that we've been involved in for over 12 years. Steve we go way back with Steve. He's a member of the family, and he does a yearly day-long marathon where he podcasts nonstop, and he did it this past Saturday. Podcasting madman. And so he kept it going and raised, I think they reached their goal of $4,000, and that all goes to Cure for Childhood Cancer.
Awesome.
And you know what? I think you can, firstgiving.com, and just do a search for the Goaliverse, and you can still donate. And guys, we're only like $200 away from the goal. So let's make it happen, and give some kids some hope here, and let us fight childhood cancer together with the Goaliverse, Rebel Force Radio, and of course our amazing Patreon audience. So thank you so much. And also, Steve has released that podcast with that part where I called in as a podcast.
Oh, excellent!
So it was great. Chaz Bazaar was there. It was a really good. Yes.
It's a homecoming.
I want to say something real quick. As a Patreon subscriber, I absolutely recommend it to anyone listening. You can, if you want to just try it out on the lowest tier. From my takeaway, to kind of piggyback on what you were saying, I'm kind of an old school technology dude. I still embrace technology, but what I love most about the RFR Patreon community is that it generates an email notification for everything that you were saying, from the RFR Rush Hour to the sound bites. Those emails, that's how I get my notice that the feed has been updated. So I find it super convenient, and the whole format of it's super clean. And I like to stay organized. So it definitely helps out with that. But for anyone just listening, you're thinking about it, just start at that low tier. Try it out, man. Give it a shot. I absolutely recommend it. I love being part of the Patreon community. RFR Rush Hour is like literally one of my highlights when they come through. As someone who commutes as well, it's fun. It's fun to listen to. And as an Ohio guy, I'm right there with you on the crazy back and forth weather. So I kind of I remember that day when it was like 70 degrees at like 7 a.m., but now it's pouring rain and it's icicles when you get home. It's crazy. So I love it. I absolutely love it.
It is. I actually get noticed when Jimmy drops the wax vinyl in the mail to me. I mean, that is how far back we'll go.
Wow.
The wax vinyl.
Yeah.
Or those old Edison canisters that you just crank up. You know,
we are on every format here. We don't discriminate.
As a matter of fact, if you take two cans and a string and hold them together real tight, you put your ear up to that thing, you'll hear Rebel Force Radio. If you're walking on the beach and you find a big seashell, hold that up to your ear. RFR. Star Wars Conversation, wherever you're at. We're breaking down the boundaries. We're kicking down the doors. Where you'll be able to hear us in your fillings.
Yes.
There's going to be so many different ways to do it. Just put some tinfoil in your ear, and you'll be like, what's that? And you'll be, it's Billy D quote of the week.
There it is.
Amazing.
And here is, what do we got here? We've got Ben from Connecticut calling in here on Rebel Force Radio. Take it away, Ben.
Hey, Jason and Jimmy. This is Ben from Connecticut. First off, guys, continue to kill it. Love your show. It keeps getting better and better. I'm not sure how you guys do it, but keep up the good work. Second, just calling. This is a few shows late, I know, but you mentioned it last show, I think. And that's the whole crying during Star Wars thing, and I forget the name of the caller that originally brought it up, who said he cried during Star Wars many times. I think, and then Jimmy Mack saying that he never ever once cried during Star Wars. I think the problem is we're being not very precise with our terminology here, and it depends on what the definition of crying is. The way the caller described it seemed like, what was he, just sobbing in the corner uncontrollably with his wife pushing a box of tissues over to him?
Oh, wow.
Is that what he means by crying? Or there's other levels of crying. There's welling up. There's getting a little misty, something in the corner of your eye. There's maybe getting to the point where a single tear rolls down the side of your face and you kind of wipe it away quickly. So lots of different levels of crying, and I think we need to be precise with our terminology here. So, Jimmy Mack, are you telling me you never have even gotten misty watching Star Wars? Maybe kind of rubbed your eye quickly to get something out of the corner of your eye? I can't think that's possible. I have never cried sobbing, but I've gotten a little misty at times. Maybe a tear or two. Maybe snuck down the side of my face once or twice. Can't be certain, but I could have felt something. One of the scenes that always gets me as far as emotionally is the Empire Strikes Back scene. My favorite movie, and definitely my favorite soundtrack, without a doubt. The scene where Yoda lifts the X-wing out of the swamp, and just that whole scene's, I think, one of the greatest scenes in all of Star Wars. Just the John Williams soundtrack is spectacular. With the London Symphony Orchestra just wells up, and the way they insert R2's beeping in the middle of that, and just absolutely spectacular. With one of the greatest lines of all. That is.
Oh, wait! Oh. What happened? Was just getting good.
Maybe he ran.
Wait, here we go.
Because of Luke saying
there it is.
But may have gotten misty once or twice, but just maybe you can readdress that. And Jimmy Mack, tell us if you've ever even gotten misty, at least watching Star Wars. I'm curious to know. That's it, guys. Keep up the good work, and may the Force be with you. Thank you.
That is awesome. Thank you so much, great Ben calls. From Connecticut. Really good call. Okay, all right. Now we're gonna give Jimmy Mack a minute to think about this.
I don't
because
need to think about
this. All right. So this is about how you define crying. Now, all guys, we've done this, right? We've done that thing where you try to pretend like you just got a little scratch on the corner of the eye. Yeah, you kind of. Move the mouth down a bit, like, you just got something right there. We've all done that, right? My Achilles heel is like anything with like animals, dogs, cats. That's rough. My wife, anytime there's like some sort of a reunion between a veteran and their child, that happens a lot. Like you see these viral videos of, mom or dad coming back and surprising the kid. I mean, my wife is just she's just a puddle on the floor when that happens.
I went to honor flights, and oh my God, these guys all come out, all these like World War II vets. I was just like melted, I was like a puddle on the floor.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. But okay, so here's what we're talking about here. It's like, crying is crying. Crying is tears.
Yeah.
Crying is weeping.
Well, but Ben is saying that it could be a lot of different things. Crying is not weeping. Weeping is weeping. Crying is crying.
An emotional response is an emotional response.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, like, are you breaking down in tears? I mean, are you really? I have broken down in tears. One time I was thinking about a friend of mine who had passed away. I was crying so hard that like I clenched my eyelids, and the tears literally like just shot out of my. I mean, it was like spraying. It was like a sprinkler system. But I mean, seriously, I was having this response.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I get it. I mean, I'm not saying I'm like crying is beneath me, but I don't cry when I watch Star Wars. I just don't do it. Do I ever feel maybe a lump in my throat? Well, yeah.
Okay. But does it go further than that?
I have emotional responses, and I did say on the show that the closest I ever actually came to having that sort of emotional response where tears were coming out of my eyes and I was weeping out of being overwhelmed with emotion was the first time I saw Anakin leave his mother in episode 1 on Tatooine, because I was seeing that film opening day, May 19th, 1999, which was exactly 4 days before my first son was born. And so I felt an emotional response.
Yeah.
I just want people to know that I'm not like some cold-hearted monster, that I don't have ice in my veins. It was this moment at Star Wars Celebration 3. It was George Lucas's first appearance at a Star Wars Celebration convention. It was in Indianapolis. I was there with my brother and my son. And we had excellent seats for this event. We were watching as George waved a young disabled child up on stage, and his mom was standing there watching him, and I was there with my 6-year-old, perfectly healthy 6-year-old, and I just was overwhelmed with emotion. George was up there waving him up. I think Rick McCallum was up there too. If memory serves. Oh no, it was Jay Lagaya. Yes. I think it was Jay who hosted that. I can't remember all the specifics, but I do remember my emotional response was I saw the kid go up there, and he received an ovation like a rock star. And I looked at his mom, and I was looking at the emotion on her face, and I was thinking to myself, oh, my God. I became overwhelmed with emotion right there at Star Wars Celebration 3. And one time, I remember the first time I recounted this story on our podcast was in 2008. And I was so overwhelmed with emotion recalling that event that I had to turn my microphone off.
I remember
and stop
that.
talking.
I remember that. Yeah, that was something because, George is not known for being this touchy-feely guy. But he waved that kid up on stage, and he went up, and George gave him a big hug, and the mom went on the mic and just said, thank you so much, because her son was really having a hard time relating to other kids. He'd been through so much, and it was really, really powerful stuff. And when you are blessed and fortunate to have children that are healthy and happy, when you see children who aren't, but yet still manage to find the, that something extra inside to get up and face every day and do it with good cheer, I don't think there's anything, truly, I don't think there's anything more humbling than that. Yeah. And you really have to be a parent to understand that. I just... It's a combination of just insane gratitude, a little bit of guilt, in a sense, thrown in there. But it's just it does make you really, really feel very, very fortunate and very blessed. But I remember that was emotional for all of us listening to you recounting that story. And so Jimmy Mack, there's not. Ice in his veins. He's an emotional guy. Chris, now you, okay?
Here, let me give you an example.
All right.
Just to put Chris's mind in the proper perspective, I've heard grown men say, when Rey reached out and grabbed that lightsaber in The Force Awakens and it flew past Kylo and landed in her hands and she ignited it and that John Williams music kicked in, they're like, I cried at that moment. I'm like, what's the matter with you? Why are you crying? It was a great moment. You know what happened with me? Like the hair on my arm stood up, and I was I was electrified by that moment. Let me sit there, start crying at that moment. What's the matter with you? That was like just a moment. Was like yes, it was just a great.
I don't want to be in a foxhole with any of those dudes. You know what I mean? Like. If push comes to shove, I don't want anybody crying over my heroism. I want you to get in there with me, right? I want you to mix it up. Yeah. We can cry over a beer afterwards. But I'm with you. I was electrified by that moment as well. That's a great way to describe it. It was the hair on the back of your neck kind of standing up and a get on your feet and cheer sort of moment. Yeah. But I'm not gonna, at the same time I'm sympathetic. I'm sure. Look, there are guys, there are girls that have the same kind of. My wife is one who has, when she gets really angry, she cries. When she gets really happy, she cries. When she gets really sad, she cries, and it drives her nuts. She can't stand it but it's something that is just so innate in her. She can't really help it. She expresses her emotions, in that way. So there are people that have no control over this, but I have to say I personally have never experienced the waterworks when it comes to Star Wars. Have I felt extreme emotion in terms of elation, excitement, and even melancholy? Absolutely, all of the above. But I have not sat there and cried. Chris, have you cried over Star Wars?
So, okay. I found this conversation fascinating. I literally was listening to it thinking, man, have I ever cried at Star Wars? And I don't – I'll put this in perspective. So I'm not an overly emotional guy. Like your wife, my girlfriend does cry at everything good, bad, everything in between. So I get it. I can feel that. But I'll tell you what. it's the moment when Han, the lightsaber was ignited through Han. I'm telling you, as a Han fan, he was my Luke. I grew up in the 90s. I'm a child of the 80s. So reading all those books, Han Solo was my Luke. And I was so captivated by that scene. It was so beautiful. I was so engaged with that moment that I do remember I had a tear. Not full-blown, sprinkler waterworks, but I definitely had a tear in that moment. But recently, this is where I'm going to go opposite. My girlfriend and I were just going through YouTube, doing that whole rabbit hole deal, and I was anticipating going to Celebration this year for my first time ever. So I went on Star Wars YouTube page. They had a trailer for Celebration 2016 in Orlando, or 2017 in Orlando. That trailer on that Star Wars YouTube feed absolutely made the both of us cry like little babies. No question. Because I'm feeling this anticipation now that I finally have an opportunity to go to Celebration and to just see how powerful of an event this is for fans like myself, young, old, everything in between. Just seeing, the children cosplaying, people with smiles on their face. That's the community that I want to be part of. And it made us both. I look over at her, she's crying, I'm crying. I'm like, man, this is unreal. So, it really wasn't a movie that made me break out in those tears. It was that community, that togetherness that's very important to me. But that Rey moment that you guys are referencing, that moment, yeah, I had an audible, I threw my fist up. Yeah, it was that Snoke moment in Last Jedi when Kylo ignited the lightsaber through Snoke. That moment made me rally, and it was. I definitely didn't cry. That's an odd. That would have been an odd reaction for me at that moment.
People would have wondered about you there.
Right.
What side exactly are you on? But yeah, okay. So now we're broadening the conversation because you're saying that it's something within Star Wars, very Star Wars related, that brought that kind of emotion out in you, but not one of the films specifically. It was something else about, fandom, and you're having the chance to go to Celebration and all of that.
Yeah.
We do have a clip here. We've got a clip of this is going all the way back to Celebration 3 many years ago. George Lucas and the little boy and his mom. So let's.
Who do we have there?
We have Tyler from Indiana.
Hi, Tyler.
Lucas, thank you for making the movies and the games and the toys.
I just want to thank you as a mom. My son has something called CHARGE syndrome, and he's had, an extremely, difficult life, lots of lots of surgeries, and was very critical at the beginning of his life. And Star Wars is his life. Doesn't have friends, and between the movies and the toys and the games, it truly is the best thing in his life. And I say that from the bottom of my heart. So thank you so very much, George, because this is his everything.
We have Tyler from Indiana.
Hi, this is Tyler.
Lucas, thank you for making the movies and the games and the toys.
I just want to thank you.
Here's his mom.
As a mom, my son has something called CHARGE syndrome, and he's had, an extremely, difficult life, lots of lots of surgeries, and was very critical at the beginning of his life. And Star Wars is his life. Doesn't have friends, and between the movies and the toys and the games, it truly is the best thing in his life. And I say that from the bottom of my heart. So thank you so very much, George, because this is his everything.
Wow.
Yeah, there you go. And what you don't see is the kid being motioned up on stage by George, and George gives him a hug. And that's something else. Like I said, George no one ever accused George of being an overly emotional guy. And but he's dad, and he understands what this kind of thing or something like this can mean to kids. And let's not forget that he got into this whole crazy Star Wars thing because he on record said that he believed that kids weren't thinking or asking about the big picture, the big questions in life anymore. Where was the mythology? Where were the big swashbuckling heroes like he had when he grew up?
Right.
And that's what motivated him. And to see all these years later, they're at Celebration 3, that this little boy could experience all of these things by something he created. It's very, very powerful.
Yeah,
very powerful
absolutely.
stuff. And I hope
hearing that audio, I mean, I see the mom standing there, and she wasn't like back in the back of the room. It was on the side of the stage.
Mm-hmm.
And there was just a microphone there. And just seeing George, he's up there, and he's got the flannel on, the plaid. He's up there, and the kid's there. And then George just starts waving him up,
Yeah.
And then you hear the crowd swell, and the mom's talking, and she just says he has no friends, and Star Wars is his everything, and like I said before, you get into this cocoon with Star Wars where it's like you have your warmth, you have your safety, you have your childhood, your nostalgia, your foundation sometimes. And you go there and you assume everyone in that convention center is in that same kind of protective bubble that you're in at that. And you notice that they're not, not everyone is the playing field is not level for everyone. And to have, hearing Chris talk earlier about how Star Wars helped him through tough situations, it means a lot to me to know that we've been spending a lot of time talking about and analyzing something that has meant so much to so many people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's something to be said to having a distraction. And I don't want to minimize that because I think that that's really, really important. I mean, why do we love great entertainment? Why did we sit around fires and listen to stories our ancestors did, thousands of years ago? It's because you need a distraction sometimes from real life. And that distraction can sometimes teach you great things about then how to go back and approach your real life. I mean, that's, kind of in a nutshell, that's what it's all about. And it's great to remind ourselves of that. And there are many people that, consider themselves big fans. I would submit to you should go back and re-listen to that moment between George Lucas and the little boy, because it does really, I think, center you and bring you home as to.
Oh my God!
What exactly
that brought it all back to me right there. That brought it all back. It really did.
Right.
It really did.
Wow.
I have good news for you, my lord.
That's good news. Come closer, I have good news.
All right. Well, in addition to Chris being an all-around nice guy, we wanted to have him on the show because he's been tantalizing and teasing us with some great Episode 9 theories he has. But before we get into that, let's talk about some facts. And there aren't a lot of facts that we have about Episode 9. But one little bit of rumor that popped up last week by way of a Reddit, I don't know what you call him, contributor, a Reddit poster, whatever. We've got some actual what you might call character reference photos, as well as some concept art that was leaked that shows various actors and characters from Episode 9.
Spoiler alert.
Oh, yeah.
Spoiler
alert.
Sorry, Chris. Spoiler alert. You're breaking my tradition.
Well, I'm sorry. Hey, you want to be on? You want to play with the big boys? This is what happens.
Darn tootin'. I'm here. I'm in it.
All right. So we've got this. We've got these.
Maybe
photos.
The old boys. I don't know about the big boys, but.
So wait a minute. Wait. Hold on. Wait. What you're saying, Chris? You haven't seen this?
No, I haven't. All right.
I gotta text this to you right now because you got to be able to see it in order for us to really talk about it.
I had someone at work tell me, "Hey, man, you see those photos?" And I was like, "No, I don't want to see the photos." I literally have this tradition going back pre-Force Awakens to not see any spoilers.
All right. Well, can you listen to descriptions?
I'm ready to go.
We're looking at.
No, I'm sending.
Let's go.
Oh no, are we going to send it to him?
I'm going to send it to him.
I feel guilty now.
Here's the fear. So a lot of the theories I want to talk about a little bit later, they're predicated on me not knowing anything. So I didn't want to be skewed by any of this, and I didn't want anything to come out before I was able to.
Well, wait. Now, none of this really. I'll be honest with you. None of this gives anything away. This is more about what things are looking like.
Well, it does give away what roles certain actors are going to do. You can tell by what they're wearing.
All right.
Interesting.
All right. Well,
two of them in particular.
Chris, I'm sorry to do this to you, but I'm going to do it.
Right. Bring it on.
Let's
go.
All right.
Him up. Now it's going to blow all of his theories out the water, and we're going to have nothing to talk about for the second half of the show.
Oh, what is this? Okay.
All right. So these are some reference photos that were released onto Reddit, and we'll take these in order. There's quite a few of these. We'll try to break them down. And the first one here that we're looking at, this is being subtitled "A New Alien." This is concept art. This looks to me like a something that's going to be, Jim, I don't know how you feel, but something small. Like this looks like a little small character. Yeah, and I don't mean in terms of screen time, but yeah, little dude. He's got some sort of goggles on. He's got a nice big mustache that's kind of crazy. It kind of comes down off the cheeks.
Teddy Roosevelt style.
Yeah. Teddy Roosevelt mustache with Watto's legs. This is Watto's undercarriage.
I was just thinking it. It's like Pat Morita from the waist up, and then from the waist down, it's Watto.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wax on, wax off.
Exactly. I was thinking, obviously not Happy Days era Pat Morita, but Karate Kid era Pat Morita. Just to be clear, I mean, this is just to clarify. So, but yeah, he's kind of interesting. He does have a prequel vibe to him. He also kind of has like. He could have popped out of like one of those Harry Potter places. Oh,
he's totally Harry Potter. No,
really, you think so?
Yes,
like a Harry Potter expert. I'm nothing when it comes to Harry Potter.
I'm sorry, man. This guy is so far removed. This guy is like never-ending story.
Yes, agreed. Yes, 100%.
This is not this. I'm sorry, this doesn't look like Star Wars at all to me. And this is going to be a recurring theme as we go through some of these aliens and these creatures. I mean, Jim and I have been talking about this ad nauseum since we started, seeing creatures and monsters from Force Awakens and on through the Last Jedi. There's nothing colorful or I don't want to say there's nothing unique. They are unique, but they look. They look like Men in Black. I'm showing my hand.
Your hand too much. We only did one guy, and you're like.
But he just epitomizes this. I don't know how else we can describe it. He's very humanoid looking, with the exception of his Watto legs and his one arm, and he's kind of got like a Watto chest too. I don't know. This is like like two maquettes,
Well, okay, so this was the first time I saw this was with our Jedi Council. Lots of Episode 9 reference photos leak. And so it was thrown out there to the council. And I remember I came home that night. It was a Friday night, and it was late, and I came home, and I was getting ready to go to bed. I was getting ready to brush my teeth, and I just saw this on my phone, and I stood there in my bathroom, and it was just like instant reaction. So this is my raw reaction, and I'm glad I sent this email out to you guys at 2:56 a.m. Oh, yes, I remember now. Yes, me and Billy Mack. Oh boy. Yes, lots of fun and late night fun. So I say, what do you guys think? That's the first thing I type because I don't even know what to think. So I say, I don't like the fleshy Mon Cal. That's my first thing. Now, and then I just unload. There's a terrible lack of bold colorization with all sequel trilogy aliens. In my opinion, so drab. The Resistance uniform that Dominic Monaghan is wearing is so plain and drab. Boring. Billy D. Williams wearing Donald Glover's hand-me-down sucks.
Right.
Richard E. Grant wearing Hux hand-me-downs. No evolution with Rey's wardrobe either. Like Luke wearing the shorty robe for all 3 original trilogy films. Everything I'm seeing here is dull, dull, dull.
Yeah.
I should read this in like 1970s film critic vibe. Everything I'm seeing here is dull, dull, dull. Sorry to piss in the pool. I'm just being honest. Nothing here makes any impact on me. I'm out. So, but I mean, that's like, I'm just like, ugh. Okay, now. But no, I want the action figures. Don't get me wrong. And if I have the action figures, that will probably change my opinion. But what I'm seeing here is when I talk about Dominic Monaghan, and I'm looking at him, and he's a Resistance officer, he looks like he's dressed like my UPS driver. Okay? He looks like he's going to drop boxes off on my porch and walk away.
He looks like Rick Grimes from The Walking Dead. That's the first thing I saw was Sheriff Rick Grimes in a Walking Dead outfit.
Yeah. But he just doesn't have the cool holster.
He's wearing a light brown shirt with dark brown pants, and there's nothing
Sweaty.
that says there's not a thing on this character that says Star Wars. Not a thing.
None.
UPS.
It does say UPS.
If it was summertime, he'd be wearing brown shorts.
The shorts, the tiny shorts. Oh yeah.
And driving around with the door open.
So you got Richard E. Grant. He's wearing the same First Order officer uniform that we've seen throughout Episode 7 and 8. That's not a big sin to me. Of course, they're going to all look the same. They're wearing the same uniform, but it does change some theories about who Richard E. Grant is playing. It's very obvious from this, guys. He doesn't have any blue paint on his face. He is not Grand Admiral Thrawn. He is clearly, a humanoid character. Rumor has it that he's a big rival of Hux, which I don't know how that can be because Richard E. Grant looks like he's about 20 to 30 years older than General Hux. I don't know how they could be big rivals necessarily.
Well,
they're certainly not colleagues.
His tentacles are deeper, dug into the he has deeper roots in the First Order. So.
Well, that could be. Okay, so that could create
and listen, here's okay, spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. Word is that Hux will be a traitor to the First Order, and much like Callus, he will cross over and reveal information and possibly even join the Resistance. Spoiler alert, spoiler alert.
Boy, this is the guy that was given the big Hitler-esque speech in Episode 7. That's hard to swallow, but
you want that kind of guy on your team, But yes, if they've captured him and they extract information from him, that's maybe he's a political prisoner. So that makes more sense to me than him turning traitor on the First Order.
Yeah,
there has to be a reason why Richard E. Grant would then fill the void of Hux. And maybe he even orchestrates things behind the scenes to lead Hux to his demise and his capture by the Resistance. So I'm just spitballing ideas out there. But of course, like I said, Lando is wearing Donald Glover's hand-me-downs. And I get that they want to – what they're trying to do here is they're trying to just simply legitimize Solo, a Star Wars story, into the overall Star Wars universe. So the best thing to do is have Donald Glover wear what Billy Dee wore in Empire Strikes Back. Oh, that ship has sailed. So now you have to have Billy Dee wearing what Donald Glover wore in Star Wars, a Star Wars story. Or Solo, or whatever.
Yeah, and this is really pedestrian and amateurish. I mean, this is right out of a fan film.
Agreed.
Yes, you don't need to justify who Billy Dee is or who Donald Glover is.
The Donald Glover character, like I said before. They should have had Donald Glover wearing Billy Dee clothes.
Yeah. This is
not the other way around.
Yeah,
if you want to draw that synergy,
this is coming. I'm sorry. I'll call it what the way I see it. This is coming from a very insecure place by some very insecure people that are saying no. Our Star Wars. That's what matters here, not the old stuff. Chris, are we being too sensitive?
No, here's my first initial takeaway looking at this. I am a huge fan of those Abrams Art of books that they put out for every film. Nothing in any of these photos screams, that it has anything to do with the Star Wars artists, the ones who actually create the concept art. This looks nothing like what has existed for years and years as Star Wars concept art. This is very pedestrian. This is, the company I work for is a graphic arts company. I've been around graphic design my entire life. This is definitely, this seems to me very quickly thrown together, or someone that has, maybe not as much talent as someone who works for Lucasfilm or Disney. It's not very good. I guess the bottom line.
This also, we got to disclaim, this could be a big hoax.
Right. This could be a bunch of crap. And also, if you look, it's like concept art for some of them, like the Kylo Ren thing, concept art, where his helmet is sort of stitched together with red super glue. Remember we talked about that once?
There was a rumor out there about that.
Yeah. The young Mon Caldo, that's reference photo. That's legit. I think they're all legit, but I mean, where in the context of the film do they happen? Like this Rey, where she's wearing essentially her identical wardrobe that she wore in The Force Awakens, that the Jakku rags, except these are bleached white. So this could be like a spiritual moment for her, where this is like only one scene in the film. You see her, and maybe that's when she's having the extended Force back, and she's walking around wearing what she originally wore, but it's all in white. It's like that, the Lord of the Rings kind of thing. So I don't want to jump to too many conclusions based on this like little burst of reference photos that have been dropped at our feet, especially with Rey, because I'm like, oh yeah, it's like Luke wearing the shorty robe through the whole thing. That might not be her final wardrobe. I hope that that's not what she's wearing throughout the whole film. Maybe that's just part of a specific sequence. But, I could be wrong there too. But that's why we're hurting to get something, That's why it would be nice if they dropped those like virtual trading cards on rebelforceradio.com and all of our social media platforms. But, we're open to the idea, just trying to help.
What's with these creatures here?
These
all
caftans?
Is that what they are? What is that? What's number P? They look like
gowns.
Yeah, they're wearing the gowns. They look like they're in Sergeant Pepper or something.
Ceremonial gowns.
Yeah.
So I now there's weird things going on here with this, and it's worth describing a little bit. I don't want to be too visual here. Look at this picture, look at that picture, because we are an audio-specific podcast. So if anyone's listening on their smartphone, just punch it up. They're real easy to find. Episode 9 reference photos, Reddit. All you have to do is Google it. It pops up right away. So
we're looking at a group of probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different aliens. They have these colored gowns, and just when you just sort of glance at this, you're looking at sort of an orange, a green, some yellow, and some red colors. It looks very Sergeant Pepper. It really does.
Yeah,
and they've got these necklaces.
When the Beatles went to go and meditate with the Maharishi, they were all wearing like groovy things like this. I see a Ringo there, but they don't have Beetle heads.
No,
they have these weird kind of animalistic, sort of almost dog-like, and without feature either, completely all in darkness, and it's featureless. And I wonder, it's like, is that a stand-in for a CGI thing? I kind of think it is, maybe. Or is this what we're really going to be dealing with? They seem to be sort of, again, a spiritual, like celestial sort of thing. Kind of like, remember those characters in the Clone Wars Lost Missions when Yoda went on that trip, and then he came across those Celestials or whatever they were called, and it was Jamie. Jamie King did the voices for all of those, and they were all just very trippy, like the Beatles, and it just, they have some kind of thing. Or maybe they're just background in a casino where they find Billy D. I don't know.
Well, don't forget, in Rogue One, there's similar characters. I mean, they're not as abstract colors, but if you remember in Jeddah, they had a costume design of these almost priest-like characters that were all in red. They almost looked like royal guards, but they were featureless as well. So that was the first thing that kind of that stuck out to me, is the similarities between these priests almost at Jeddah, but just not as many colors.
Yeah. Those hooded spiritual guys. Yes, that's all in the DK books.
Right.
We've got a few more aliens here, but in all cases, they are, Jim, you use the term fleshy, flesh colored, your basic beige or pink, very humanoid flesh, what you would consider humanoid flesh. There's a few outstanding ones, but here's the thing, okay? Wait. Where are the familiar original trilogy alien designs? We've been talking about, this is the third film now. Can I get a Jawa? Hey, can I get a Jawa, please?
We have requested Jawa. Hey, okay, here's a good one. I got a good one for you. You want classic trilogy alien species? I heard from someone who's in the know, who really told me, like, 200% there's going to be an Ewok in episode 9. An Ewok? I mean, come on. Really? Yes, an Ewok in episode 9. I swear to God. I'm not making this up.
I'd still settle for a Jawa. I really would.
Yeah.
Well, an Ewok. Ewoks? Hello?
I mean, it's all right. I mean, what, Ewoks are back? What do you mean?
Well, remember when we were talking the other day about the Ewok that was in the Last Shot novel, where he was a slicer.
Oh, yeah.
He was some super intelligent Ewok that sliced into all these databases. So it would make sense to bring an Ewok back if they're starting to throw that out in the novelization.
The computer hacking Ewok.
Interesting, right?
Yeah, a little bit.
Hit the Taj Mahal theme from the old 80s cartoons. Remember that one?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
We're the Ewoks.
We are the Ewoks. When the spirits from the forest grow.
Yeah.
The memories. But you didn't watch that. You were watching Muppet Babies instead.
Yeah, I did. I flipped over.
We learned this, I think it was on last week's show.
Yeah, there's not much more to say. I would say out of all of these things, the thing that I like the most, and let's be positive, I think the Kylo Ren with the lava-like red super glue is pretty cool. I like the idea that after Snoke made fun of his helmet and he smashed the helmet, after he killed Snoke, he's like, yeah, screw that, I'm going to go get that helmet. And he went back, he got the helmet, put it back together, and it's forged by anger and lava and hate and all of that. I like that. That's the thing I like the most. The thing I like the least is Lando wearing Donald Glover's hand-me-downs from Solo. That's the least I like that. Yeah, that's what I find most offensive.
Yeah. Offensive.
And I love the movie.
I'm just
I like the movie.
To see Billy D back. I'm happy to see Billy D
I like
back.
Solo. I liked Donald Glover as Lando. I thought he did a great job. But come on, I don't want to see Billy D. Lando wearing that. No. It's a de-evolution of the character. I don't care if it's just wardrobe. It's a complete devolution. Makes no sense, and it's so obvious and so basic, and they should be really embarrassed. I hope this is fake.
Yeah, Agreed.
I don't think this is fake at all.
I hope it is.
I'm leaning towards fake. Yeah.
Where's Puppet Lando when you need him?
All right, Jimmy Mack. Okay, what do you find? What most excites you? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like a couple, dozen photos here. What most excites you?
I like that in the lower left-hand corner, this horned alien guy. He looks like something right out of the pod race, right out of George Lucas's imagination. As a matter of fact, it might even be a ripoff of George's stuff because he's got sort of the horns that Saesee Tiin had, but then he has chin horns and a face that reminds me of a pod racer I knew long ago. So he's kind of neat. I like him. And then he's next to him is some weird kind of guy. He looks either sort of zombie-like or it's hard to make out the detail, but it could be like Ultraman's helmet. Do you remember Ultraman from
I think he looks like Jack Skellington in the face.
He does a little bit.
Yeah, but it's, you know what? It's a real blurry sort of photo. It's hard to make out. But it could be sort of like a death mask with a stitched mouth or something. It's hard to make out any detail on that. It's so difficult. Then there's this little droid. It's a cone on a unicycle, which really lacks any sort of imagination or anything. I hope it's just a background thing. It reminds me of that droid that Lucas had in Attack of the Clones. That was the rickshaw droid, and he was pulling Padme and Anakin along the streets of Mos Espa, and he's like, "Okie dokie." That guy.
Oh, yeah.
Reminds me of him, but with no detail whatsoever. It's like, put a cone on a unicycle. Let's go.
Yeah, come on. We're making a movie here. Quick.
It's like, the paint's not even dry on this thing, and they're rolling it out on the. It's like, will JJ notice? Well, JJ notice it's a parking cone painted white and green on top of a unicycle.
All right. I mean, look, when you think about honestly, with that one, for example, like would George have ever approved this as a maquette? This
Which one?
The unicycle with the cone face.
No, it's and so I hope that thing. Now I heard that there is a droid that has some role in a scene, like where he pesters BB-8 and like keeps BB-8 distracted somehow, and it could be this idiot droid we're looking at here. And so if the droid is just like some idiot droid, then what are you going to do? But it really lacks any sort of imagination. Like I said, it's a parking cone painted white on top of a unicycle.
All right.
So I'll take a big pass on that one. I'll still get the action figure. Who am I kidding? I'll get the Dominic Monaghan dressed as a UPS driver. I will get that action figure. They have me, hook, line, and sinker. They don't even have to try anymore.
Wait, we didn't talk about Poe. We didn't talk about Poe, who's clearly auditioning for who? Wait, who's?
So, looking at this, my favorite is Line K, caption Adventure Poe. And all I can think in my head is Adventure Poe Dameron. And just his new, like the offshoot, right? Like we have the Cassian Andor series. Now we have Adventure Poe Dameron, who literally looks like he's in like the Uncharted video games for PlayStation 4.
I was thinking that he was going to replace Brendan Fraser in the Mummy franchise.
There you go. Yeah,
I think he looks cool, and I think he looks badass.
He's got a bandolier,
I want Adventure Poe. I don't want getting yelled at all the time, Poe. I want Adventure Poe.
Yeah.
What's wrong with wanting Adventure Poe? I want Adventure Poe. He's an awesome character, and Oscar Isaac is cool as the black ice the Titanic rolled into. I mean, too soon?
It's only been 100 years. He's as cool as the other side of the pillow.
There you go.
No, that's Billy D.
Don't you talk to her like that. Meg's as cool as the other side of the pillow. Billy D. Williams.
Hello, Peter. Welcome to the cool side of the pillow.
All right. Oh. Well, he is pretty cool. He's got the gloves on. They kind of remind me a little bit of the Harrison Ford gloves when he's working on the Falcon. Maybe he, a lot of us thought that he was the Han Solo character of this saga or of this trilogy. And this looks like maybe a step in that direction. Like I say, he's got the bandolier going on. He's got the pants and the boots, very Star Warsy. He's got the blaster on his hip, and the white sort of not dress shirt or button down shirt, but the Han shirt, sleeves rolled up. I do like the it's not really an ascot, but he's got a scarf.
Yeah, a little scarf. Yeah.
Okay, but where that he could be working on a very hot, humid planet.
Maybe he's Tatooine Poe.
He could be. There's a big rumor that says that they're going back to Tatooine in Episode 9. So that's definitely a possibility. So Jim, your least favorite is Dom Monaghan, looking like Kevin James in King of Queens.
It's unfortunate because I've always liked him in The Lord of the Rings and in Lost, and he's just a likable kind of character, and I see him fitting into the Star Wars universe very well. I just regret they failed to provide him with any kind of imaginative wardrobe whatsoever. The freight elevator is in the back, Dominic, and you can put those packages
please,
out there.
Up against the wall with the packages. All right, Chris, what about you? You're looking at this stuff for the first time. We're grabbing you and by the back of the hair and forcing you to look at all these spoilers. And what do you like? What don't you like so much?
I'm telling you right now. I mean, I cannot get over the fact that I just don't think that this artwork matches up with pre-existing concept artwork. I mean, yeah, sure, these can be some reference photos at some
concept art. Concept art could be anything, but I mean, and it does tell you exactly what is and what isn't concept art. And the thing I'm more focused in, I don't mean to cut you off, Chris. I'll let you finish your thought. But I mean, the thing I'm the most focused in on are these reference photos, because that to me seems like the real deal. Yeah. Some concept art could be anything. They generate so much of that stuff just to see what will stick. And my Horn Pilot is he's reference photo. Welcome to the universe, Horn Pilot friend.
Oh, he is reference photo. This is this isn't just some concept art.
But then the weirdo next to him is concept art, the one that we thought could be like a zombie, or I think maybe it's just like a Ultraman helmet. But
yeah, but Billy D wearing
that's cheesy. That's just very cheesy to me that they would do that to him. But it's familiar. I get it. But just looking at all this, you're right. The guy up in the top left corner, if anyone's looking at this, the Teddy Roosevelt alien, very Phantom Menace to me. That era of CGI. But everything else, I mean, the Kylo helmet looks great. I'd be fascinated to see if they do pursue that with that red veining that kind of runs through the helmet. Yeah. Adventure Poe Dameron, that's my boy. I love it. And then looking at the Rey costume, right? Like we were looking at those Jakku fatigues or whatever. And actually, on first glance, when you sent this to me, I opened it up, and what I'm referencing is H. I thought that was Padme Amidala's outfit from when they were... Yeah, it almost looks like a Padme
on Geonosis.
Exactly. But these aliens don't do anything for me. It's very beige. You guys kind of spoke to that already. Yeah. The color palette's very uninspiring. But as you just mentioned, if they go back to Tatooine, that is a planet not known for bright colors. So that might fit in very well there. I don't know.
It could be. I find it ironic that this young Mon Cal is wearing sort of around his neck, like clearly some sort of collection of color swatches.
Massive swatches.
Yeah. Yet he is.
That's the reference photo,
right?
Because I've seen that board that they hold, and it has all these swatches of colors on it, and that's to assist the digital artists.
Exactly, but it's funny he's showing off all of this, amazing color, and yet he himself is.
Right. Irony. Irony.
But he's.
Oh, I didn't need. I jumped in. Did I mansplain?
I mean, he's got. I think you did a little bit, but he's got my skin tone.
That's what we do.
This guy is whiter than I am.
He hasn't seen the sun in a while.
Yeah,
he is a fish, I mean, all
right.
True. They say he's young. He's a young Akbar.
Yes. All right. Hey, we're running out of precious time, and I want to get to this. One of the things, Chris, you and I were talking about is some of your theories about Episode 9, and I feel that you and Jimmy Mack are on a very similar page here as it pertains to, they're calling this the finale of the Skywalker saga. I think both of you have questioned, well, how could they be calling it the finale of the Skywalker saga if we're not dealing with Skywalkers anymore? Right. So before we get into that, I just want to we're going to go back to, I think this is from Reddit. Our friend Paul Bateman forwarded this to us. Here are some new rumors, and we did already run the spoiler alert. So here are the spoilers. If it turns out to be true, it's a spoiler. If it's not, it's a rumor. Here's what we got. Most of the plot, we're talking about Episode 9, is about Rey and Kylo teaming up to confront a being called the Sorcerer of Ankrom, who is revealed to be behind everything since Episode 1. The Ankrom villain created a dark relic a long time ago. Whoever possesses this relic can become basically a Force god and control everything. Luke appears in a flashback, much younger, training a then 13-year-old Kylo Ren who is already starting to be corrupted by the dark side. Rey has a new friend in the movie called Naylan, who she starts training, but is killed by the villains. She trains 3 other Padawans, Kalina, Ogbor, and Zach. Richard Grant plays Captain Michael, I'm assuming that's how you pronounce it, M-I-C-A-L, or McCall. Captain McCall. Michael's a little too earthly.
McCall. I think it's like Captain McCall.
Captain McCall. This is Hux's old rival. We were talking about that before. Also, Finn and Rose leading a stormtrooper rebellion. Poe almost sacrificing himself in the end. Hologram Leia giving inspirational speech. Aha. There's your trick for how they're going to reuse the Carrie footage, make her a hologram, scramble it up. Yes. Rey and Padawans building new lightsabers on Kyber planet. So there's a lot to this. There's a lot to unpack. Rey and Kylo teaming up. That's the first one that jumps out. So you Reylo fans are going to be excited. The Ankrom villain, this Sorcerer of Ankrom. So this is something bigger than the Emperor, bigger than Snoke. He's gonna sort of bridge the gap between those. The relic. So
Ankrom. Why not call him the Sorcerer of the Wills? Something that connects it to the existing mythology. This is supposed to wrap it all up, and you're going to throw the Ankrom at us? Right. J.J. Abrams, J.J.R. Tolkien, they're ripping each other off. Ankrom has got to be from one of his books. Now, come on. I mean, I'm sure they Googled
You're saying it sounds very Tolkien, right?
Yes, it does.
Yes. It sounds Tolkien.
Okay. All right. So we've also got a flashback with Luke, 13-year-old Kylo. Rey, it was John Boyega who mentioned that Episode 9 would pick up about a year after Episode 8. So, Rey has had a meteoric rise in the Force, going from a complete novice, depending on what her lineage is, to training Kalina, Ogbor, and Zach.
Yes, and those presumably are the Padawans she's building new lightsabers with on a Kyber planet.
Yeah, wondering if one of those could be Broom Boy.
Broom Boy.
Is that Ogbor?
Kalina, Ogbor, and Zach? Yeah, he seems more like a Zach. No, his name is like Tamiri.
Yeah, he has a name,
His name is Tamiri Blagblog or something. And, yes, he's already been designated a name by the books.
Wow.
So, but, I mean, he's nobody. He's just to demonstrate that the Force is rising in people throughout the galaxy. And so what I thought we would get to in Episode 9 would be like a lot of Force users siding up with the Rebellion or the Resistance, or maybe they are known as the Rebellion by this point, and the New Order or the First Order or the Empire. Maybe they're known by the Empire by the time we get to Episode 9. That would seem a natural progression to me, because they do rule as an empire, very empirical in their the way that they suffocate independence throughout any planet they govern over. And then on the other side of the coin, you have the Resistance, which really is the rebellion, because if the First Order has established itself as the government throughout the galaxy, then the Resistance is a rebellion. Just like it was back in the old days. And that's where I thought we were going. You want to tie it all together? Do it like this. And then have, you show Broom Boy. And that means, oh, my God, lots of people now are starting to get in touch with the Force. So you have Rey and the spirit of Luke or whatever, and they're training all of like a whole flipping army of Jedi, and they're hooked up with the rebellion. Meanwhile, you have other Darksiders, but I mean, the thing is with the dark side, it's hard to build an army of dark side Force users. It's hard to do because they turn on each other. They're evil, so they don't get along. They don't play well with others. That's why there's the rule of 2, is because you cannot build an army of dark side users.
But don't forget about the Inquisitors.
Oh, goons. Total goons.
Sure, but still Force users. Dark side.
Yeah, mostly, according to things like the comics and stuff, they were converted Jedi.
Right.
Jedi who betrayed the cause when Order 66 went down. Right. And they aligned themselves. But I mean, you know what? They were not high up on the ladder at all. They were just, they were broom boys.
Right.
But here's a natural progression, right? And then, so the Sorcerer of Ankrum, the Sorcerer of the Wills, at least that has some sort of foundation in the earliest of Star Wars mythologies. Right. I always keep at my fingertips the original 1976. I have it right here with the original Ralph McQuarrie cover, the original paperback from 1976, released December that year, about half a year prior to Episode 7 hitting the theaters. I stole it from St. Catherine Labouré School in Glenview, Illinois. That's where I went to school. It still has the stamp in it. And it was
beautiful.
Yes, it was March 16th, the day I checked it out, and I was the only kid. I was the first kid to check it out of the library and the last kid. That's the only date that is stamped in the back of the book. I've had this sucker for 43 years or something, and I had it before Star Wars even hit the screens.
That's fantastic.
So, yes, spoiler alert. So here it is. On page it's page 2 on these yellowed pages. There's an epilogue, and the epilogue is from the first saga, Journal of the Wills. Who are the Wills? What are the Wills? You want to tie it all together. This is from the Journal of the Wills. The Wills make the Sorcerer of the Wills. I mean, that's almost sounds like an Iron Maiden album or something, but it's cool. I love it. And that ties it all together. So, of course, we're sitting here, we're reading rumors, and now I'm just creating some speculation based on these rumors. I'm not, denouncing the Sorcerer of Ankrum. I will hold my final judgment until I see the film. And so, but these rumors are just simply rumors. So, Sorcerer of the Wills, yes.
All right. No. Let's take it one step beyond rumor. Let's talk about theory. Chris, you have been hard at work in your brain creating some of these theories. And these theories have largely, exclusively been developed in a spoiler-free zone. Now, has anything that you've heard here tonight, whether it be the reveal of some of those reference photos, some of that concept art, or some of these Reddit rumors, has any of these things overturned the theories you're about to lay on us?
Not in the slightest. I am so excited about this.
All right. Okay, here we go. Strap in. Strap in. For the record, I like Finn and Rose leading the Stormtrooper Rebellion. I think that would be cool. Okay.
That sounds great. Yeah, that sounds great. Those are all fine ideas, no question. I am spoiler-free, so I don't scour the internet. I don't seek out fan theories. Basically, everything that I talked to Jason about the other day was just based on like plain fact and some random expanded universe knowledge that I have. So I'm not trying to like alter anything or what is existing. I'm not trying to spin anything. but I desperately want Episode 9 to be a story about legacy, and specifically the Skywalker legacy. And it's driven me nuts listening to people say, oh, Rey can't be a Skywalker. That would be so contrived, and it's a trope. And yeah, listen, it's the Skywalker story. So I saw the foundation that JJ was laying down in Force Awakens, and I'm absolutely in love with that movie and the story and the bricks, the cornerstone that was laid down in that movie. So the theories I'm about to dive into are definitely coming from that lens, the Force Awakens lens, because in my opinion, The Last Jedi was almost like a fever dream. You know, it's beautiful, it's gorgeous, but no question, it's very spotty. It's very erratic in its storytelling, and it has very strange, head-scratching motives, right? It's almost like Star Wars was baking J.J. Abrams a birthday cake, and Rian Johnson came in and blew out all of J.J.'s candles, right? But it's still it's still a birthday cake, though. Like Star Wars is still a birthday cake. It's delicious. It has great frosting, but we need to relight those candles, and we need to let JJ blow them out. And how do we do that? If Kylo Ren is to be redeemed, you definitely need a familiar antagonist. That is cut and dry. We don't have the time to build up another character, an Ankrom, a supreme Ankrom sorcerer guy, right? Like, we just don't have time to do that. So, with Episode 8, we saw the death of Supreme Leader Snoke. Now, with Snoke eliminated, who is someone that all Star Wars fans already know?
The Emperor.
Okay.
Palpatine so now will return.
We don't have a lot of time to introduce somebody unless this person literally gets on the screen the moment after the crawl, and he kills Leia, Finn, BB-8, Balatik all in one stroke, which isn't likely, right? Because Balatik does not die. So here's the thing. In all seriousness, what if this primary antagonist in a Kylo Ren redemption angle was somebody who learned from a Sith master who could create life, prevent death, and rose to unlimited power?
Yes.
Right? Like, I'm talking about Palpy.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Old friend Palpy. But not your old friend. Not your old friend. Young Palpatine. Clone Palpatine. Clones! I know people are losing their mind about clones. And how is this possible? How do we get an Emperor clone, right? For those who are not exposed to the expanded universe, I'm going to kind of break some quick things down for you.
Dark Empire.
Dark Empire for sure. Here's where this theory kicked off in my brain. The announcement of the cast, there was a certain actor named Matt Smith.
Doctor Who. Yes. I don't watch Doctor Who, and I know who he is. So, yes, I think, look at him. He kind of has like that sort of facial structure that could pass off as a young Palpatine, couldn't he?
He looks a heck of a lot like a young clone Emperor from Dark Empire, does he not? I mean, he
sure does. I mean, you know, he's got kind of that dead, cold stare. Yes, I could see him as a young Palpatine. Absolutely.
So we know the precedent has been set for clones in the expanded universe. You know, you have the Timothy Zahn, trilogy. They introduced Mount Tantus, which the Emperor built this massive storehouse that held his antiquities, his Sith archives, but most importantly in this theory, held cloning chambers, right?
Sparty cloning.
You got it.
Chambers. Yes.
You got it.
And that's where it all happened, man. And that's, they were tying into Clone Wars at a time when the Clone Wars was not even kind of sketched out. As a matter of fact, the Clone Wars era itself, when you think about when those Zahn books were coming out in the early 90s, George Lucas had declared Clone Wars, you cannot go there. That he shut it down. It was a no-fly zone. And you cannot go near the Clone Wars because he knew he had this story in his head about the origin of Anakin Skywalker and how the Clone Wars fit into all of that. So it was a big guessing game. But what Zahn was able to latch on to was the cloning technology did exist in the Star Wars universe.
And then we explore the Dark Empire series where we find out that the Emperor has cloned himself. But there are some difficulties with that. It was tough for the Emperor to kind of get a Force entity into a being. I mean, we already have those two point blank, easy to find references to cloning the Emperor, or something related to the Emperor cloning in the expanded universe. But here's the $1 million thing. I hear you. It's expanded universe. It's Forsaken. We don't listen to it anymore. So what about canon? How does this fit in the canon? Easy. Has anyone ever heard of a movie called Attack of the Clones? Weird. So clones is a concept that common Star Wars fans, casual Star Wars fans are familiar with. It's already been introduced as a possibility. And if you listen closely, there's actually a line of dialogue in The Force Awakens where Kylo Ren references a clone army at one point, whether that's a nod to the Clone Wars or is the First Order actually experimenting with clones. It was kind of a throwaway line, but I definitely perked my ears up a little bit, especially with this theory. But in canon, so far since the Disney acquisition, we've already been presented with Sentinels and the contingency. So for those who aren't familiar with this, the contingency was a plan that the Emperor basically made that in the event of his death, it would destroy the Empire. And the Empire would rebuild itself in the unknown regions.
Yeah, it's a video game.
Yes, sir.
And that kind of came and went, too. So, Jason, did you see these things? They were like these weird robots that sort of floated around.
Oh, yeah.
They had cloaks. And then they had this hologram face. And then the Emperor's face would pop up in there and start rapping with them as if he was still alive.
Like, I think there was an episode of what's the family sitcom with Al Bundy now?
No. Was it
Modern Family, where Phil had a iPad strapped to a some sort of remote control broom that was going around. It's the same kind of thing. Like he's got FaceTime on the helmet of this droid.
I don't know. I thought it was creepy as hell, and I liked it.
It was cool. It was cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was in some comic books too.
Yeah,
it was just dropped.
Well, so you're right. So it was originally introduced. The Sentinel concept was introduced in the Chuck Wendig, everyone's favorite Star Wars author, Chuck Wendig's Aftermath series. But the Sentinel, what's most important about
Thanks for name checking that guy too on my show.
So we know that the Sentinels were deployed in the Emperor's death, right after Return of the Jedi dies. So the Sentinels get deployed. The contingency gets put through. And the Empire starts to destroy itself. It moves out to the unknown regions. Clearly Palpatine doesn't want to die, right? Like he learned from a master who wanted to cheat death, right? But Palp is so power hungry that he just doesn't ever want to die. He puts literally his essence into these Sentinels.
Well,
right?
So wait a minute. So are you saying that Palpatine might have learned from the mistake of Plagueis? And whereas his master, Plagueis, did not learn how to cheat death, that perhaps Palpatine did, and that you could go back to Episode 3 and read between the lines there, and perhaps there is some sort of admission that he has learned how to do this.
I think it is a combination of that learning from his master, but also his embrace of technology. He is a masterful leader. He knows how to manipulate everything, right? Like that was his one big power, is he's a manipulator, but he embraced technology and kind of catapulted the Empire into this technological nightmare. You have the Death Star, the Executioner Star Destroyers, all this like crazy stuff, right? That's what he embraced. So why wouldn't he embrace cloning technology to keep him alive after his eventual death? He was going to eventually die. So why not just embrace cloning? That's where I'm kind of at.
So that's where cheating death came from. You cheat death through cloning.
Right. And there is, I'm remembering it now, there is that moment, and my girlfriend's going to kill me because she's just starting to watch Rebels, just turning her onto that. But late in the final season, he's in those portals with Ezra, and what is he chasing? What is he chasing in those portals? Is he chasing eternal life? Is he trying to find a way to, cheat that? But here we go. All right.
Mm-hmm. So what made your girlfriend cry? Because you said the big crux of this, and where I think it connects to what Jimmy was saying in previous episodes, is that this has to be a story that fits into the Skywalker saga. And if Leia Solo Organa Skywalker is not going to be in it very much, Luke's dead, Han's gone, where's the Skywalker? And you say it's Rey.
So if let's jump to that then. But bottom line is, with the redemption deal, if Kylo's going to be redeemed, you need the Emperor in Episode 9 in sub capacity, so that Rey and Kylo can team up, redeem at that point against the Emperor and Hux, because the Emperor's going to come in and try to take the First Order back from Kylo. And that's going to be the kind of fault line there. So I can go on and on about that Emperor theory, but you're right.
Do you think that the Emperor is this sorcerer of Ankram? It could be. Well, because he always was very slippery. He went by aliases, and there, we could learn a lot more about some of his aliases. There might be a way of injecting him into other Star Wars stories by, say, oh my God, the Emperor was responsible for that moment.
Right.
There could be all kind of things, especially considering the events of Rogue One. There are, the Emperor could have been pulling the strings on certain things there. Maybe he had Saw Gerrera was under his dark side grasp, and he was using Saw. There's so many different ways you can go with this. So I think that could be his ultimate title,
That's
Darth Nothing, I am the sorcerer of Ankram. But I would I prefer Wills to Ankram, but whatever. Again, this is all just a bunch of rumors to begin with. But bringing back the Emperor, it always takes me back to something Paul Bateman has said numerous times. And he's always like, guys, I hope I'm not a broken record here. But he'll say, Ming the Merciless always was resurrected. He never died. You thought he was left for dead, and he came back. And what is the essence of Star Wars? Star Wars, really, if you want to get to the primordial soup of Star Wars, it's those old Flash Gordon serials that made the biggest impact on George Lucas, and he carried it through his life until he was able to make his own Flash Gordon. He wanted to make the Flash Gordon movies, but he was denied by the King Syndicates or whoever owns Flash Gordon. They did not want to deal with him, so he said, I will make my own Flash Gordon. That's how it happened. That's how Star Wars
but one of the things you're taking for granted there is that the people who are making Star Wars now, so whether in this case it'd be J.J. Abrams, Jim, that the primordial soup, as you, I think, very accurately described, is the Saturday morning serials. Chris knows that. I know that. We all know that. But does JJ know that? Does Disney know that? Does Lucasfilm know that anymore? That's the question.
Do they even care?
Right.
Do they even care? It's like, oh, no, let's watch all the Kurosawa movies we can possibly consume. It's like, okay, guys, you're on the right track.
Yeah.
But just watching a bunch of Kurosawa movies and looking at a bunch of Macquarie art doesn't put you there. You have to spread the wings.
Yeah.
And definitely the Flash Gordon serials are part of that spreading of the wings, along with The Searchers and American Westerns. Look at what influenced George Lucas. Yeah. I think people try to, I think there's an honest to goodness effort being made to try to understand where the roots of Star Wars comes from, but maybe something gets a little diluted after a while, 5 movies in. Oh, we got this figured out.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So where does the Skywalker thing come in?
You're right. So my main theories relate to my hope and desire that Rey, our protagonist, is actually, in fact, a Skywalker. I never really liked when people would tell me, she can't be a Skywalker. That's too predictable. That goes that Flash Gordon thing, man. I want to laugh and have fun, and I want to feel great after watching Star Wars. And it's like, what can we do to get there? We've already known that it fell off track a little bit with The Last Jedi, regardless of opinion or whatever. So how do we get there? This is literally what has made my girlfriend cry and my other friends who I've told this to kind of like blown away. Their minds were blown out their behind, right? Okay, here we go. So what if I told you that Rey's a Skywalker, but not via Luke? It's Leia, right? Rey Solo. Like that to me, that was always the angle that I wanted to pursue. Yeah. And it drives me nuts now, like seeing people say, "Oh, that's not Rey's lightsaber. Hasbro's marketing Rey's lightsaber. It's Anakin's lightsaber." Man, listen, she's a Skywalker, and I'm going to tell you why. And it's all predicated on a J.J. Abrams flashback. We know he loves flashbacks, and you got to after the mess that Last Jedi left. JJ's got to go back and reconstruct. So
yes, we need another Force back.
You need it. So here's how it happens. Han and Leia, we know they get together after Return of the Jedi. They get married. Luke, on the other hand, he goes and starts his Jedi Academy. And then once Ben's old enough, obviously he goes off to learn at Camp Jedi from Uncle Luke. While Ben is learning at the Academy, Han and Leia have a daughter. Okay, now get this. Reyna Solo. So diving kind of into that expanded universe, if you know it, Han and Leia have a daughter named Jaina Solo. So literally, my first suspicions going back years ago was that Rey was not her real name. It was always Reyna. And I don't know if that's just because I'm fascinated with Jaina, but it definitely stood out to me. And that kind of carries through the rest of this theory. So Reyna, she stays with Leia, who at this time she's a diplomat for the New Republic. She's not a general yet. Han is kind of disgruntled because his son, his boy, is learning from his brother-in-law, a Jedi, and he's not becoming a scoundrel, right? Like he's not learning the ways of a smuggler. So Han's kind of bummed. He's bummed out that he's got Leia, who's involved with politics. His son, who he wanted so badly, is now learning the ways of the Jedi. Han gets bored. He starts smuggling again. He takes Chewie. They get out of there. And in the midst of their fighting, Leia, she leaves a very important item on the Falcon. Luke has given Leia that lightsaber, right? Anakin's lightsaber. And she left it on the Falcon. And this is going to connect. So just remember that piece. So soon after, Han and Chewie take off. Snoke starts infiltrating Ben's mind. And then this is what we see in Episode 8. Luke sees the vision, right? The vision that literally brings down the house. And what this vision is Luke saw his nephew and his niece, Reyna, joining forces, aligning with the dark side to take over the galaxy, right? This vision made Luke, who was infallible, shook him to his core. So at this moment, we know that Ben loses his mind. The Knights of Ren come into play. They slaughter everyone at the temple. Here's where it gets awesome for me. Luke, he's totally devastated. We see his hand on R2, right? He gets the word out to Leia quickly. Luke and Leia make a decision to hide Reyna forever. Put her on an unknown regions planet, and there is precedent for what is called a mind rub. And I truly believe that Leia or Luke mind rubbed Rey, and that's why her memories are so scattered about when she, was a child. So who takes Rey to Jakku? None other than maybe Lando Calrissian or some friend of the family. Puts Rey on this planet far away, and this is what causes Han and Leia to have their split, right? Like, we know that they split, and there's this weird animosity. It's not really explained. I believe it's because not only, did they lose Ben to Snoke, but they sent their daughter into hiding, basically never be seen again. So we're going to flash forward, right? How does this really happen, right? Like, all that's in flashback, maybe not the whole story, but that's my story. But really, why was the Falcon on Jakku? I don't believe that was coincidence. I think that the Falcon was left there as an insurance policy in the event that Rey needed to escape. She didn't know that, right? But it was really odd to me, and it's actually grown more odd to me over the years, watching Rey just naturally get into the Falcon, fly it like he's owned it her whole life, and just to have that bond with that ship when we know Han has that bond with that ship so tightly. And it just kind of mirrors that a little bit. One thing that has always stuck out to me, and I brought this up to Jason, was Kylo Ren had a reaction to a First Order officer who basically referenced the girl. There was a girl involved with FN 2187 and BB-8.
That doesn't get talked about a lot. He gets real mad when he says, a girl. And
he
it's not like he's saying, oh, you got bested by a girl. What are you, some kind of losers? There's something there. There's a familiarity there.
Yes.
He has some sort of pre-knowledge of, quote-unquote, a girl.
Exactly.
But it's dropped.
And it totally dropped. And so some other things that kind of stood out to me, if you guys go back and watch Force Awakens, please pay attention to when Han learns Rey's name. Watch how Harrison Ford acts in that moment. Watch how he reacts to learning her name is Rey. It's very it's an interesting kind of almost admission that Harrison plays into that character. Maz Kanata, right? And she leans over the table at one point. Who's the girl? Right?
Yeah.
She kind of knows. She kind of knows. And how does this lightsaber speak out to Rey, right? Like it's a Skywalker lightsaber. It's Anakin and Luke's lightsaber, and it spoke to her. That is one thing that just drove me nuts for so long. But then a couple other things, after Han dies, Rey comes back to the base, right? The embrace that she has with Leia is so powerful and just odd because it's the first time they met. And they're off having this very intimate moment like a mother and daughter would, right? That was my first takeaway. Like, man, that's a deep connection. I mean, she doesn't even acknowledge Chewie when he walks up.
No, the great sin of Force Awakens.
It's almost as if this is a conversation we had in 2016 and nobody's seen The Last Jedi, because The Last Jedi fireballed every theory that I've been hearing here with the simple line that Kylo Ren says, your parents were nobodies and they're buried in a grave. So, I mean, why float that out there?
So I have it. You hit it right on the head. So this is the coup de grace, right, of this theory. So we have Last Jedi that we know kind of disrupted what was happening. There's two pieces to what you just said, Jimmy. Luke saying to her, I've only seen this raw power once before, right? But the Kylo Ren, this is it. We know, I mean, really, what is the foundation of the Sith? They lie, they steal, they cheat their way to and manipulate whoever they need to gain power. Why wouldn't he tell Rey what would absolutely crush her? And he thinks in that moment of weakness, I got her by the throat, right? She's nobody. She's going to fall in line, and then she is going to join me, and then I will reveal to her that we are brother and sister, and we are going to take over the galaxy. That is so – what he told her in that movie was – when we watched it live in Chicago and I was there for the RFR event, I said, dude, that can't be. BS, right? That is a total Sith manipulation tactic.
Is it?
Yes.
I don't think so. I see a history of the Sith telling the truth. Count Dooku, when he captured Obi-Wan, he told Obi-Wan the truth. The Senate is being manipulated by a Sith Lord named Darth Sidious. Hello. He just broadcasts that everywhere. These guys don't BS. Luke, no, I am your father. No BS. He's his father. Luke, suck it up. It's the truth. So we're not left in this kind of weird limbo. It's not like, nobody's playing a fast one on anyone here when you deal with the Sith Lords. The Sith deal in absolutes. That's the underlying theme of the masters of the dark side. And even if we're not dealing with Sith proper, the masters of the dark side are the Sith. And it's only because the light was able to take advantage of their own self-confidence and overconfidence and the love between a father and a son. That was the only thing that could take out the dark side, the masters of the dark side, the Sith. And that's what did it. You know, I mean, there's nothing revisionist about that. The proof is in the pudding, so to speak.
Sure. Well, okay. Yeah, I mean, that, you know, cannot disagree with the Dooku line, obviously the Vader line. I don't know, man. I something about that scene, it just didn't sit right. And I really do truly feel he was manipulating her at that point. I think he knows. And it goes back to that line in Force Awakens. I think he knows who she is and was just telling her what she wanted to hear or what she needed to hear to join him. He needed her, you know, and I don't know. I don't know.
You know, to me, it's manipulating not only a character, you know, on a character between character basis, but it's also twisting an audience too.
Sure.
So I wouldn't, you know, I mean, it's almost like all of those theories were fireballed by The Last Jedi. Right. So if The Last Jedi gets ignored and Abrams picks up the pieces where he left them, then that could feasibly all tie in together.
Yeah.
But maybe we're asking a little too much.
Well, so that's fair. That's fair. So what about this? Okay. What if, I mean, let's throw out the Han and Leia thing then. Okay. I mean, that's the theory I subscribe to, but let's say The Last Jedi is in play. Okay. That not only is The Last Jedi in play, but Rey is Luke Skywalker's daughter. Whoa. Totally crazy. Okay. How does that happen with The Last Jedi? And in kind of, yeah, I got your point with the Kylo line. If he's dealing in an absolute, this does kind of deconstruct what I'm about to tell you. But this whole Luke Skywalker Rey theory is predicated on only one thing and one thing only, which can be disproven very quickly. We need to know who Kerry Russell, the actress Kerry Russell, is playing in Episode 9, because I have a pretty deep suspicion that Kerry Russell, if those of you are unfamiliar with her, she bears a somewhat resemblance to a middle-aged Mara Jade, George Lucas's beloved Mara Jade, right? And
Get out!
I know, dude, that was hilarious.
George couldn't stand Mara Jade.
That was rolling in my car listening to that the other day.
Hates it.
But you know, we know that Disney doesn't mind discounting, you know, George Lucas's desires, but let's just say, for example, Kerry Russell gets cast as Mara Jade. So Luke and Mara, they fall in love, and Mara is Luke's first Padawan. We have this J.J. Abrams flashback. Luke has his academy. Mara's a trainer at the academy. Then Luke and Mara have Rey as Ben enters the academy. Ben's old enough to go to the academy. Ben's aware that he has a niece, okay? Luke sees the vision. And then Ben loses his mind. The Knights of Ren destroy the academy. Okay, here we go. This is where it changes a little bit. Luke, he has Mara Jade take their daughter Rey, and they flee. They leave the academy in this chaos, this mass destruction. Maybe Mara Jade connects with Han, Lando, Talon Card, whoever, and then passes Rey off to this person, right? Now, Rey gets her mind rubbed, whether it's by Mara or Luke. She just doesn't remember what happens. And Star Wars Resistance this week had brain scraping for the Resistance troopers, which was super weird, right? So it's definitely part of the universe. But here's where it gets awesome. The Knights of Ren, they actually track down Mara Jade and kill her, right? They murder Mara Jade. So George Lucas, I mean, he's stoked, right, if he's watching, but Luke Skywalker is not. Luke Skywalker is not stoked. Whoever takes Rey from Mara, puts her on Jakku, Falcon's there. It's definitely not a coincidence in my gut feeling. But this is how we get the Luke Skywalker that we see in Episode 8, the kind of down and out old hermit. He can't come to grips, can't face the universe because his nephew killed not only his wife, but all his Jedi students, his daughter, is now disconnected from the Force, set off on an old planet. He is totally beaten down, right? It all hinges on one Keri Russell. If she is Mara Jade, I feel way more confident about this theory, and that I feel Rey is the rightful owner of that lightsaber, and Hasbro can put whatever they want on that packaging.
Well, I'm going to go with, if I had to pick one of your two theories, I would have to go with number one, that I think it's much more plausible that she is a Solo than she is a Skywalker. Although, I appreciate the nod to the established expanded universe / Legends. I don't think we're going to see this big olive branch to the EU of old in the form of a Mara Jade or a Grand Admiral Thrawn. I just don't see it. Now, the question I have for both of you is, and we'll start with Jim, is how critical, how crucial, how important is it if this is indeed the finale of the Skywalker saga, a 9-film, 9-chapter saga? How critical is it that Rey, not Ben, not Kylo, have some tangible connection to the Skywalker family?
I think it's essential. I think it's absolutely 100% essential. If they stick with the Rey being a nobody from nowhere with drunks, whatever Kylo Ren was spewing at her, then that makes Kylo inconsistent with the Sith of old, who work in absolutes, deal in absolutes, and they do tell the truth. But however, is Kylo Ren a Sith? Is he fully there? He did commit patricide. He killed Han Solo, one of my favorites. Yes. So can I ever look at him in a protagonist role? Can I ever look at him as being just and someone that I want to throw my support behind? I'd rather cheer for Kaz the Spaz on the Resistance platform.
No.
And I feel no connection to him, but I can pull for him at least. I can root for Kaz. And I feel like the ship has sailed on any idea of me rooting for Kylo Ren. I want to see him receive a cruel, unusual, and painful death. Remember the old Super Dave show?
Oh yeah.
There were times when like a tank would roll over Super Dave and then back up over him again. And
oh yeah.
I'd like to see that happen to Kylo Ren a few times, as a matter of fact. And then I would like to see some Wookiees urinate on it.
Wow. Next level.
I took it up a notch, kids. I took it up a notch, kids. That's where we're rolling tonight. It's been that kind of show. This show has been an emotional roller coaster for me all night long. I mean, hard. Oh, go ahead. Hit it.
No, say hard.
No. I was going to say hard. I was going to say, I should finish my thought. I can't.
Yes, please do.
Because I can't leave that just hanging out there,
No.
Like so many blaster bolts that Kylo Ren froze in time. Right. That's like what I did right there. It's like I said hard, and then Kylo Ren stuck his hand out and froze it there. And that's not the word you want to go out on. So I was going to say, hardcore speculation. Thank you so much for bringing a lot of these ideas to the table, Chris. It's always nice to have a new voice.
Get out! Get out! Out!